We check in with the Talking Cars team at home to see how they're doing and to answer your questions. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello. Well, for those of you that have been watching the podcast over the last several weeks, you know we've had to do things a bit differently due to the coronavirus. We've been shooting the podcast remotely from our homes, but this means we haven't been able to have as many of our regular podcast personalities on the show that you're used to. So we're going to do things a bit differently this episode. First, it's going to be an all questions episode. Second, we're going to have those questions answered throughout the show by all those folks that you haven't seen in a while. And they're also going to, besides answering your question, they're going to give a little insight into what they've been up to spending the time at home. For myself, I've been spending, a lot of time here at my girlfriend's. So for those of you that have sent questions or comments in saying, hey, I want to see Mike's house. I have the same microwave as Mike Monticello, and those kitchen walls are beautiful. Well, they're actually all my girlfriend's. Part of the reason is she has fantastic Wi-Fi here. That's why we shoot the podcast. She's just about the only human I've seen over the last several weeks. So to stay healthy and happy, what we've been doing is we've been going out on a couple hikes a week out in the woods with her cute little dog, Oscar, who may be tiny, but he's an amazing hiker or hikist. Pretty sure it's hikist. It's not. And then on top of that, we've done things like we did a formal Friday where we got all gussied up, got some takeout and had a nice dinner here at home. I've been doing some work on my motorcycles, and I've been watching season 3 of Ozark. But we want to know what you've been up to. What have you been doing to pass the time at home, especially if it's autos related? Send those 30-second video clips to talkingcars@icloud.com. And with that, we're going to start off the episode with a video clip from Max from Long Island. Let's see what he has to say.
My Infiniti here has been sitting for about 4 weeks now because of the stay-at-home order, this lockdown. When should I worry about my tires developing flat spots? Should I turn my car on at least once a week just to get the battery going and get the fuel pump going? Again, it's not really cold, so the battery should be fine, but I just wanted to wonder, should we at least warm up the car at least, once a week, or really we have nothing to worry about? Stay safe from this coronavirus. Stay at home. Only go out like me just to go and get some food and medicine. Take care. Bye.
We also have a similar question from Adam from Springfield, Massachusetts. He says, I've been working from home and self-isolating recently and have taken my 2017 Subaru Outback out of the garage only once. I let it idle in the driveway for about 10 minutes and drove it around the block 3 times total. Is this enough TLC? Should I be doing more to maintain my car during the COVID-19 crisis? So, these are both really good questions. The reality is that cars shouldn't sit idle for very long. You really want to take your car out once a week, and you want to drive it for a good 20 minutes. Not only does this bring the oil and the engine and all the fluids up to operating temperature, but really you need about that much time to keep the battery charged up. As far as the tires getting flat spotted, that was Max's question, and that's an excellent question, and that will happen. If you let your car sit for too many months in a row without driving it at all, yes. So by taking it out once a week, you're going to eliminate that issue as well. Also, if you leave your car parked outside, driving it once a week is also going to help with, getting the rust off the brake discs and making sure that the brake calipers aren't going to, get seized onto those discs. So, as far as basic maintenance, you can stretch some things right now, especially if you're not driving that many miles. But if you really do need an oil change, quick lube places, many of them, you can just go there and you can sit in your car. You don't even have to get out of the car to do any of this. And they can, besides regular oil changes, they can do some minor maintenance as well. Of course, if you have a serious problem with your car, something is wrong or broken, or you have a check engine light on, definitely make an appointment with your dealer or your local mechanic. But before you do that, before you go in, just make sure that they have some kind of coronavirus protocol. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to stay safe and healthy when you're having this done. And the other thing is, if you let your car sit for too long, or if you aren't putting very many miles on it, and we've talked about this before, your gas can go stale. So gas is good for a good 2 months in your gas tank. But after that, it's going to start to degrade over time. So what you want to do is go out, fill the car totally up with fuel and put in something called a fuel stabilizer at that same time as you fill up. You're going to do it in a proportional amount to how much gas is going to be in the tank. And those two things are going to help keep your gas much more healthy over time. So we have a couple stories up online on consumerreports.org related to this. And the other thought is, with taking your car out once a week, that's good. It's a good solo activity, and it's a good way to kind of get rid of some of the cabin fever. So it's another reason, besides being good to your car, it's also good to yourself. So why not go ahead and do that? Our next question comes from Dan in New Brunswick, Canada. He says, my 2020 Subaru Outback came with white LED fog lights. Historically, yellow seemed to be the color of choice, but I've heard any color other than white will reduce the lumen output. What do you think? Is yellow just easier on the eyes? So regulars on the show know that Jen Stockberger is not only the director of operations at the Consumer Reports Auto Test Center, but she's also in charge of headlight testing. So we reached out to Jen to see what her answer is for Dan and also to see what she's been up to lately.
Hi, Dan. Hope this finds you and your family and everyone around you safe and healthy. We are working from home. I'm taking the opportunity to be outside as much as I can. Truth is, if I was not an engineer, I would be a florist. So I'm loving some time in my gardens, spreading a lot of mulch and taking care of, I think I've told everyone I have horses, so there's plenty here to keep us busy. To answer your question, it's funny you ask. I happen to have a 2020 Subaru Outback here in my driveway with its standard LED fog lights. The truth is, the function of a fog light is far less about the color than it is the location. Fog lights are meant to literally cut under the fog. Doesn't really matter what color they are as long as they're giving you some light beneath the fog in that foreground area. I think a lot of manufacturers are following suit of the trend to equip LED headlights by following with LED fog lights, because one thing which you reference is the yellow of halogens looks very different when you pair it next to the very whitish, bluish tint of LEDs. So I think it would look funny when you had halogen fog lights next to LED headlamps. But as long as they're doing what they should and putting light in the foreground, color doesn't matter, but you should always shut them off when it's not foggy because they can actually detract from your distance seeing. So hopefully this was helpful. Stay safe, stay well.
All right, so now we know how things are going out at the Stockberger Ranch. The next question comes to us from a different Jen who writes, I've always been interested in cars, but since I was born and raised in New York City, I've never actually owned a car of my own. I've driven many rental cars as well as my parents' minivan as a teenager, but my husband and I are looking to finally buy. We want a small-sized hybrid with new safety features, some creature comforts, and want to keep the monthly payment to $400 a month or under. What would you recommend? Well, that sounds like a great question for Mr. Mike Quincy. So let's head out to his place and get an answer from him.
So Jen, looking for a smaller sized hybrid, I would definitely check out the Honda Insight. This did very well in Consumer Reports test, good reliability, excellent fuel economy, but we would definitely go for the touring model. We tested the EX, which has just seats that were kind of so-so. So when you go for the touring, you get better leather seats with lots of power adjustments. The EX, the Insight also comes standard with lots of safety features, which is also what you mentioned in your question. The other alternative that I was thinking about was the Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Now, the benefit of the Corolla Hybrid is that it's a lot less expensive, about $4,000 less than the top-of-the-line Honda Insight. However, the Toyota does not offer the Corolla Hybrid with a lot of creature comforts. So it's really not as fancy inside, but it is less money. So that's my recommendations for you, Jen. Hope you're staying well in this kind of coronavirus house lockdown thing. As you can see, I've been very busy growing this fuzz on my face, and also have spent a lot of time baking. We're talking a lot of bread and a lot of cookies, and I've got to stop eating these cookies or I'm never going to be able to fit in my clothes. Anyway, thanks for your question. Hope you're well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great, Quint. Now you've made us all super hungry. Thanks a lot. All right, the next question comes from John in Milton, Pennsylvania. John says, I own a 2016 Toyota Prius and love everything about it except for the flimsy, uncomfortable front seats. I have chronic lower back issues, and that front seat is doing me no favors. Do you have any suggestions for a used, fuel-efficient vehicle that would be better for my aching back? P.S. We have a smaller garage, so the smaller the better. Well, John, how lucky are you? I mean, we have someone on staff who minored in lumbar support seat ergonomics in college. I'm just kidding, but Gabe Shenhard does talk about two-way lumbar support and four-way lumbar all the time, so I think he'd be a great person to answer this question.
Thanks to Google Docs, shared PDFs, and an internal database, I've been able to write road tests, edit and review copy, and keep in close contact with the rest of the team. Absolutely can't start the day without a shot of espresso. Now I'm ready for the morning meeting on Google Hangouts. Now that I've had my espresso, I join the rest of the crew, virtually of course, and that's when we throw out ideas regarding content, be it first drive reviews or car advice we give people when their cars are parked for an extended period of time during a pandemic, for instance. John, I feel your pain, literally. I too have backaches. So since it seems like you love the Prius otherwise, I'd say in your case, why don't you opt for the XLE version, which comes with faux leather seats with power adjustment for the lumbar, and that just might do a trick for you.
All right, well, now we know exactly how Gabe starts off every day. Okay, Greg has the next question for us. Greg says, I have a set of Continental True Contacts size 195/60 R15s on my 2005 Honda Civic Coupe and have not been impressed with the ride. In fact, my snow tires ride better. I'm concerned something may be wrong with the tire. Is poor riding a sign that a tire may blow out on me? Well, when you're talking about tires, you know, we quite often go to Ryan Pizlakowski, so let's head out to his place and get an answer from him.
Hey Greg, thanks for the question. Hope you're staying safe and keeping busy during these bizarre and unfortunate times we're living through. I've actually been spending some time on my property clearing some trees and getting ready to build a garage this summer. In regard to your question though, I like to just start with, you know, if you have a concern of the tire blowing out or getting close to that point, get the tire checked out either way. You know, if you're experiencing a shake or a shimmy of some sort, you know, there could be something wrong with the tire. I don't know if these tires are brand new or, you know, if they're just, you're putting them back on for the spring. You took them off in the fall. But definitely just get them checked out if that's the case. If not, though, our ride scores reflect the tire's ability to smooth out a rough surface. If you will. So when we test these tires back to back on a course we have at the track, and that, you know, it has all kinds of rough road characteristics. We have concrete surfaces, storm drains, you know, expansion joints, anything you would experience in the real world. And you know, we rank them in a comparative fashion, one against the other, how well they ride, how well they dampen impacts, or just smooth out those rough surfaces like concrete, stuff like that. So that's what our ride scores reflect. But again, if you're experiencing a shake or something else, that's kind of a different issue, and you should get that checked out. You also mentioned, you know, you had winter tires that rode better, and I expect that. We find that winter tires generally ride better than all-season tires because they're just naturally softer the way they're built. They have a softer compound. They have more tread depth, so there's a little more cushion there. It's just the nature of how they're built. An all-season tire is stiffer, but it handles better. So, you know, you might just be a little bit used to the winter tire from the winter. It's been a couple months or however long it's been for you that you had them on. But, you know, it might take a little time to get used to the Continentals again. Or if these are new to you, you know, it might take a little time to get used to them. So I hope that answers your question. Stay safe. Take care.
Well, great. Well, I, for one, can't wait to see that garage when it's all done. Good luck. Les from Connecticut has the next question for us. With backup cameras now standard on all new vehicles, what do you think is the next technology that will be added to vehicles to increase safety? Well, that sounds like a perfect question for Kelly Funkhauser, as that's her area of expertise. So let's head over to her house and get an answer from her.
Hi, everyone. I've been stuck at home like most of you during this quarantine, and something that I have been doing to keep myself busy is making face masks. And I've donated quite a handful of these to some of the local medical community and others in my neighborhood to help try to keep us safe during this time of lockdown. And so I'm going to answer a question from Les from Connecticut. I think that what we're going to see coming down the pipeline next is potentially pedestrian detection. So we're going to get a lot more safety benefits and hopefully automatic emergency braking as a result of being able to detect pedestrians. And another thing that I would like to see, very similar to the backup camera, would be a forward-facing camera. I think there are a lot of larger trucks and other large SUVs that it's difficult to see over the hood of the car. And to be able to have a digital display projecting the image of what's in front of the car could be something that I would like to see in the future as well.
Well, that's a great answer. And also, it's heartwarming to see people like Kelly who are, just trying to do their part to help everyone right now through this coronavirus. Moving on, let's see what Hank from San Francisco is asking us today. My family is filled with Toyota fans, and most of our cars have been Toyotas since the 80s. But I'm very disappointed to see Toyota lagging behind all other major car manufacturers in making electric cars. What are they waiting for? It's very clear their fuel cell cars aren't selling. Well, why don't we send this one out to Jake Fisher, who is the director of auto testing at Consumer Reports and also knows quite a bit about electric cars and hybrids. So let's see what he has to say.
Thanks for the question, Hank, and I'm happy to answer it. Unfortunately, I'm not in the Consumer Reports garage. I'm actually in my own garage. And you mentioned 80s Toyotas. I have an 80s Toyota too, and that's actually my Toyota MR2. That's kind of gathering a little bit of dust. And I am kind of going through a little bit of withdrawals from driving. I haven't been doing much of that. I have been doing a lot of trail running. I actually just got back from a trail run, exploring trails in my neighborhood. I think I went about 15 or 16 miles, kind of going nuts. But I am spending some time with my family, doing lots of running, a little bit of biking. That's okay. So anyway, you asked about Toyotas. So why do they seem to be so far behind when it comes to electric cars? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's hybrids. They are really ahead when it comes to hybrids. And they believe that all of the batteries that they are producing can produce a lot more hybrids than they can electric cars. So if you think about it, a hybrid car doesn't really need that much battery capacity as a pure electric car does in order to go 200 miles or such. So they're actually able to produce millions of hybrid vehicles with the same battery capacity that it would take to make maybe thousands of electric cars. And what that means is they believe that they're actually doing more for the environment and saving more fuel by doing that. And in our testing, we have found that the Toyota hybrids, they are really quite phenomenal. These are quiet cars that go a long distance, that have good power. And it doesn't matter if it's the large Toyota Avalon or a smaller vehicle. I mean, they're getting 40, 50 miles per gallon. So much that, my wife, she drives a Toyota Prius, her old Prius. Now my son is driving that Toyota Prius. So it just really does make a lot of sense for them. And when it comes to full electrification, there will be a time that we are going to go gasoline free. And that's where they really think the future, and they're thinking long range, is going to be fuel cell. Obviously, we can't do it right now. You don't have hydrogen fueling stations all over the place. But when that happens, if that happens, they want to be ready. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Hank, for asking the question. Take care and stay safe.
Well, let's hope Jake is being safe out there on those trails and maybe getting a little work done too. Kevin is bringing us our next question. He says, I've been thinking of purchasing a 2-seater fun car, something like a Miata, Supra, or Fiat 124. Can a small child in a car or booster seat ride in the front seat of a car like this? If the passenger airbag is turned off, isn't it no different than the back seat of a regular car? Well, first of all, Kevin, my vote would be, of those three, go with the Toyota Supra. It's by far the most fun to drive of them. So I go for the Toyota Supra. But when we talk about child seat questions, usually we turn to Emily Thomas. So let's head over to her house and see what she has to say.
Hi, everyone. Nice seeing you guys, and hope you all are keeping safe. We've been pretty busy here at home. This room you see behind me used to be carpet. We decided to rip that out and put in some vinyl plank flooring. which was a nice, fun adventure with a 3-year-old who insists on being part of the entire build project. And otherwise, as you can see, we've got just toys everywhere because it's important to play with all of your toys simultaneously. So the whole house is just covered in toys and tiny humans. Like that one. So to answer your question, Kevin, you can put a child in the front passenger seat, but it's not ideal. It's definitely against best practice recommendations. Best practice says that, and even your vehicle will say that children under the age of 13 should be in the back seat because that is the safest location for them. You should definitely never keep a rear-facing child in the front seat. If you do have to put a child up front, push that front passenger seat as far backward as possible. And really, it's not the same level of safety that you as an adult are getting in the front seat because you have the benefit of seatbelt and airbag systems that have been optimized for adults. You are able to have the advantage of those safety systems, but for a child, you really want to keep them as far away from the impact as possible. And frontal impacts are the leading type of crash in real-world injuries, and so it's really best for your child to be in the back. It's the ideal location. If that is not possible, then technically, yes, they could be up front, but you certainly are not giving them the same benefit of safety as they would in a rear seat. Doing a video.
Hi, talking, everybody.
So I hope that helps you, and I hope you all keep safe and are surviving the quarantine. Take care.
Looks like Doc M's actually has a pretty good little helper there. She's lucky. Okay, John from Fort Worth, Texas has the next question for us. He says, after hearing on a recent episode that 87,000 Hyundai Sonatas were sold in the US last year, and knowing that the total numbers of cars sold worldwide, I'm curious what happens to all the old cars. How are we as a country and globally reusing or disposing of cars and car parts? John, that's a great question. So we reached out to Keith Berry for an answer from him.
Hey there. I'm at home in the Boston area in beautiful Medford, Massachusetts, trying to stay safe, wash my hands, keeping everything clean, staying home, most importantly. So glad to be able to join and answer a question from John in Fort Worth, who wants to know how we're disposing of cars. Well, the good news, John, is that we're already doing a pretty good job. So you're right, that is a huge number of cars that get sold every year, even of just one make, just one model. And about 10 to 14 million cars get scrapped every year, in the United States, according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. That's about 95% of cars that get recycled at the end of their useful lives. And, what the end of a car's useful life is really depends on the car and the area and rules and regulations. And an area with incredibly stringent rules about emissions, a car that might be still able to drive might get scrapped a little sooner than in a place that doesn't have those rules. And the same thing as far as a place that has very high labor costs to perform a repair. A car might just be cheaper to scrap a car than it is to put the effort and time and new parts in order to keep it running. But in the United States, that means about 10 to 14 million cars a year. The really good news about that, though, is that according to the Auto Alliance, which is a trade group, that approximately 86% of the material content of those cars that get scrapped can be recycled or reused or used for energy recovery. And that's real good news. A car is among the most recycled consumer goods. And according to the World Steel Association, a lot of that material inside of a car is steel. And when it gets recycled, it doesn't have to be mined. And that's really, really good for the environment when we're making new cars out of old cars. So it might seem a little wasteful, but in the end, it's sort of a whole circle of life thing that's going on where, your old Plymouth can turn into a brand new something else. There are some other things that can happen to a car, and most likely, aside from the cars that get scrapped, is that some of them actually get exported. That's only about 800,000 cars a year, according to the U.S. International Trade Commission, and those cars tend to be luxury vehicles. The majority go to Mexico just because it's close by and because of free trade agreements, but others tend to get sent to the Middle East and Africa. Some of those cars are luxury vehicles that aren't sold in those countries where there isn't a dealer network from brands that are mostly in the United States, where people want something a little different. Other times it's cost effectiveness, that you can have a car that's a little older and it's okay to keep it on the road there. In fact, some of the former test cars that CR has sent to auction have ended up on the road outside the United States, which is kind of an interesting life, to think that a car has been driving around Connecticut and now it's driving around, in one case, the Czech Republic. So I hope that answers your question, John, and make sure to stay safe, and thanks for talking cars with us.
Well, and this brings us to our last question. Troy in Alabama says, I'm looking to replace my 2002 Toyota Celica GT-S. I'm looking for a similar car in terms of driving dynamics, but more modern. My budget is $30,000 or less. Any suggestions? Well, Troy, when you mentioned that in your Toyota Celica GT-S, the first two cars that come to my head are the Toyota 86 and the Subaru BRZ Twins. First of all, you're keeping it in the family in a sense. You're getting a Toyota, and you're getting that really good Toyota reliability, which both of these cars, the BRZ and the 86, are known for. They're a little different from your Celica in that they're rear-wheel drive, whereas your Celica is front-wheel drive. But this actually gives them a more balanced feel. And it makes them just magical through corners. I mean, you can't even believe how fun they are to drive. They aren't super fast. They only have 205 horsepower, but they're really all about taking those curves as fast as you can, within a safe manner. Like your Celica, they have a very small rear seat, but they're both right around that $30,000 price point. Now, if you want a convertible, but something still along the lines of these cars, well, then I would say go with a Mazda Miata. Well, on that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to learn more about the cars and the topics we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send those 30-second video clips, questions, comments to talkingcars@icloud.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.